Hello, this is Michael, atheist and alcoholic. I am attempting 90 AA meetings in 90 days. Nothing discussed in these videos will ever undermine the anonymity of AA. So I don't think that bone cancer in children is unfair. And I'll get to what I mean by that in a minute. Before I discuss tonight's meeting, I did want to mention that Chapter 4 that I keep referring to as two atheists and agnostics. And that is a fair way to describe what the chapter is, but the title of that chapter is actually We Agnostics. So if I'm going to shit all over it, I should at least get the title correct. Tonight was meeting 42, and there were two things read during the meeting that I looked up later so that I could share them with you guys and my thoughts. One was the third step prayer, and the other was a daily reflection, the limits of self-reliance. So the third step prayer reads, God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. So I had a bone marrow transplant in 2005, which I've brought up, I think, a couple times for different reasons. Completely fine now. But the absolute fucking worst part about that experience was seeing these sick children in the cancer ward. And the fucking parents, just the devastation on their faces, the desperation. My daughter was about 6 at the time, and I was so grateful that it was me in the hospital bed. I can't even fucking imagine. But as heartbreaking and unfortunate as those circumstances were for both the children and the parents, I don't see it as unfair. Simply because for me, and the dictionary definition of fair may deviate slightly from this. I should have looked it up before starting this video. But for me, fairness requires a knowing actor. And as terrible as the situations for these children and the parents were, there was no cosmic judicial force raining down that misfortune upon them. It is just terrible genetic luck and circumstance. So heart-wrenchingly unfortunate, but not unfair the way I view fairness. So if I believed in God, I don't know how I would reconcile a loving God with something like bone cancer in children. I don't know why I would ever be inclined to, how is it worded? Ask a God that gives children bone cancer to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. I don't know how those things are reconciled for religious people. I've brought it up to religious people before and never gotten a satisfactory answer. If you're a religious person and watching this video, and you've found a way to reconcile a loving God with bone cancer in children, please let me know. So that's what I mean by bone cancer in children. Not unfair, because I don't believe there was a willing actor in that unfortunate circumstance. So the daily reflection, the limits of self-reliance. All of my character defects separate me from God's will. When I ignore my association with Him, I face the world in my alcoholism alone and must depend on self-reliance. I have never found security and happiness through self-will. The only result is a life of fear and discontent. God provides the path back to Him and to His gift of serenity and comfort. First, however, I must be willing to acknowledge my fears and understand their source and power over me. I frequently ask God to help me understand how I can separate myself from Him. I frequently ask God to help me understand how I separate myself from Him. Maybe I was putting that in there inadvertently. I thought about this. I don't. I may have to bring this up during a meeting. Like, I don't think that willpower alone is enough for many addicts. I think that many people need help in some form or another to get and stay sober, whether that is through a group, through a community or brotherhood like AA, pharmacology, inpatient rehab, therapy. Most people, to get and stay sober, need help. But it's not, when I ignore my association with Him, I face my alcoholism alone. It's not God or alone. There's a lot of avenues for help. And maybe it's not fair for me to shit on this daily reflection when I think it was probably written for people who have already given themselves over to a higher power, already believe in one. Perhaps it's not meant to convince someone to adopt a higher power the way that the 4th chapter, We Agnostics, is intended to. But I don't see the value in complete surrender. I mean, I kind of get it. Like, letting go of my resentments and shame from the past has been helpful, and maybe like some surrender to a higher power could facilitate that if you believe in a higher power. I don't know. Maybe that's something I need to bring up in a meeting to ask them how exactly the complete surrender is helpful, because I've been thinking about it and I don't completely get it. There was more about the meeting I wanted to get to, but the videos went on long enough, so I'll wrap it up. Maybe I'll talk about another story that was shared, apocryphal, not somebody's personal story, but like a story about appreciating your value as a person. Maybe I'll talk about that tomorrow, that tomorrow's meeting will be less eventful, less to talk about, and I'll get to it then. So that's it. That's all I have for tonight. Thank you very much, and I'll see you guys here again tomorrow.